All right. Once again, I just want to welcome everyone in. My name is Paul Reed. I am the marketing director here for Advisys. I've been with the company for just about 10 years. It'll be 10 years next month. So I've definitely gotten a very good chance to talk to a lot of our users and a lot of people in the industry about what it is that makes Advisys unique. We have been around for a long time, since 1979 as a company, initially a reference book for advisors to be able to educate themselves and make the most of their client interactions by having trustworthy education and other information that can really help bolster what it is that they know already. Before we kind of get through here, I just want to make sure everyone can hear me okay. If I can get a couple people to use that little raise hand or just give me a quick note in the chat that everyone looks like that's good. Perfect. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate that. I always want to make sure before I get too far that we can see the screen, we can hear me okay, and that we are ready to go. So, for those here today, really the purpose and the theme of today's session is about helping advisors understand how to stay in control of a conversation from start to finish. That has to do with content and pace and just generally being able to provide clarity about each stage of the planning process. And that's a lot of what Advisys does differently than some of the other tools out there. We also do have, an analysis component, and we do kind of numbers in, numbers out. But the reason we've been around as long as we have is because we provide something for people at each stage of that planning process, whether it's, a calculator to make a point about a particular financial planning concept, or an educational report that talks about the why behind the need for that particular area. So we'll be looking at some of that today. But I want to really remind everyone that this is not about making it complex. It's about keeping control. And that's why we picked the name for today. So with that being said, let's look at a little bit of what we'll be covering today. I like to talk about the Advisys philosophy. I've touched on that a little bit already, but I want to really highlight who is this program for, who's it utilized with. We'll go into some use cases beyond planning. Like I said already, there's a lot of different ways that this platform can be used. I think when people think of financial planning, they think of the traditional, e-monies and things like that. And we're not trying to take away from that. We want you guys to be able to continue to use those, but to be able to find a place for what it is that we provide, in the middle of all of that. So the goal today is to kind of help you guys show you how to stay in control through that first meeting, through those follow-up, and then so on and so forth. So we'll go from a little bit of information about us and kind of what you'll expect to see to the actual a live demo of the product. And then we'll wrap up, with just some basic information about how you can subscribe, or, some of the services and support that we offer for the product. All right. So hopefully that sounds good, and hopefully you'll stick around and learn something. Um, let's start with our philosophy. We are a program that's really built for real world conversations. Again, I've been with the company 10 years. My job is to talk with our users, talk with people about what it is that makes them successful, or what it is that we need to add to kind of like make this a more complete tool. And one of the things that I always come away with is that, we're really not trying to be flashy. What we want to be is practical. We want to deliver clarity. We want you to be able to get in and out of the program quickly and be able to speak to what it is that you're putting together confidently, right? So number one thing that I always like to say is don't get caught up with the way that the input panels look or anything like that, because what you get out of it is really the value, right? And then the second thing is that we complement, we don't replace. For those people that use a comprehensive tool that does data aggregation, this fits into your existing process pretty easily. It's about guiding that conversation, about preventing clients or maybe new prospective clients from getting overwhelmed. And a lot of that has to do with the way that we break down these topics, and really leans into what I'm talking about today about controlling the conversation, right? So the last thing that I want to highlight as far as kind of our philosophy is that we're designed for versatility. This is not going to be a cookie cutter plan that you're going to get out of here. We can do everything from onboarding someone with education to creating a quick plan or a more comprehensive plan that talks about all the different areas of planning. It's really up to you to pick and choose what it is that, you get out of the tool, right? So at the bottom here, I always like to leave a little quote, something about, that makes us a little bit more relevant. And really, this is very true that clients don't really need fancy, they need focus. A lot of times, our lives are very busy. That means our focus is scattered across all these different areas of need. Like, I'll use myself as an example. I have 12-year-old twin daughters. I'm constantly thinking about, okay, well, they are only a few years away from college, but then I also need to be able to pay for still saving for retirement. And I have parents that are aging that are maybe going to need me soon. And so all these different parts of the conversation that kind of cloud our judgment, we want to be able to kind of provide that focus. So Advisys really helps you stay on message, stay on task, and therefore stay in control. So hopefully we'll see some of that when we go through the actual product walkthrough today. The next thing I want to do is talk about a little bit about who Advisys is for. We have been around, like I said, for a long time. And when I do my client research, our client research on who it is that's, our subscribers, and I look from the marketing standpoint of like who it is that's really getting the value out of this, it's really interesting because a vast majority of our people that have been using Advisys for a long time are very experienced advisors. And what that says to me is that, this middle column here is that they understand that it's about efficiency, right? You want to get more done in less time, but they understand as well that maybe that this tool isn't for every client, right? So we like to say that we're geared towards the middle class, that person who maybe doesn't fit into the comprehensive e-money or money guide plan, um, needs a little bit lower complexity, but still has a lot of questions, right? So this is really the core. This center column is really the core of who it is that uses us right now. But it strikes me that all of these things are things that someone who's new to the business would also want to be able to do, right? When you're brand new to this business, you don't have a lot of credibility, so you need some way to be able to present yourself professionally. You need some way to be able to create a narrative and a conversation that says, hey, I know what I'm talking about. And our education and the way that we break down these topics is a really great way to do that. So, although our core of our business is really experienced advisors, I love to recommend this when I'm at conferences and shows to people that are early career because it shows that you know how and what goes into the process and that you can again control and look professional without it taking you years or being this big spin up to learn a comprehensive planning software, right? That's a big thing that we hear from our people that renew each year. And I see a few of you on here that probably renewed recently, that this is where the bread and butter comes in. It's when that client has the question and you want to be able to answer it, it doesn't require a full plan. Advisys is the tool for that. We can come in, you can use a single page calculator or some report that helps drive the point home or helps get the client moving down the funnel, right? And the last group, this is really the bulk of our business here, is teams and enterprises. We are licensed by major broker dealers, either through affinity marketing programs where they offer it us, at a discounted rate, or we have some insurance companies that buy us whole shot for their entire field. And the reason for that is what it says here, scale and consistency. We want to be able to give, your field or your team a process that they can follow and repeat, right? Repeatable, refinable, is really what we're after. So a lot of what we do business wise is with large groups because it allows people that are trainers and those managers to kind of create a unified vision or approach to what it is that they're doing with clients, right? So although, like I said, we have make a lot of our business individually off experienced advisors, I really think we run the gamut of who it is that can use this effectively when we break it down into these different areas. Right. So that's a little bit about who it's for. I also mentioned that a lot of our content is geared towards that middle market, middle class individual who maybe understands that they need to plan, but is not really sure about how to approach it, maybe finds the planning process a little bit intimidating. There's lots of studies out there talking about this group of people. The reason that not everyone works with a financial planner is just that. It can be overwhelming to people. So being able to control the conversation, being able to really break it down and spoon feed them what it is they need to know in order to build trust and rapport is what we're after as a company, right? I believe that the reason I've been here for 10 years is because our mission of education is very, very near and dear to my heart. I grew up without a lot of let's just say, good money management in the house. And so having something out there that helps people go, hey, you know what, you don't have to be afraid of it, but you can really take control of your own journey, I think is really useful for people and can be a really good way to build your own personal brand as an advisor if you're the kind of person who helps people understand that it doesn't need to be scary, right? So a little bit again about who we are for, but let's talk about, what it is that you can do with it, right? Because I said there's a lot of use cases for this beyond plans. We're not really just for formal planning. I think of it as more as a communication tool. If you guys follow Michael Kitces or anything that he does, tons of great information out of him. If you've ever seen that the software planning map, you'll find us on there under kind of a smaller category called Planning Light. And the reason for that is that we're not comprehensive. We aren't trying to replace those easy monies, but there's a lot of people out there who need just that basic plan, even as a precursor to the money guide, to the e-money. But within that, there's a lot of different things that you can do that are not traditionally considered a financial plan. So, there's for that reason, we're used by a lot of fee-based people, people that, maybe aren't ready to charge that fee, can do something with advice that provides value, that gives you something to present to an individual that still makes you look good, right? So in our tool, you'll find needs analysis. We have 15 different needs analysis that talk about everything from retirement savings and retirement distribution to asset protection through the form of life insurance or business protection through the form of life insurance. We cover a lot of different topics and we have analysis for each of those that you can kind of pick and choose. And we'll go into that when we go into the product demo itself. The core of what you'll find here in the center tile is the education component. We use plain language. We are intended to help not just explain a topic, but walk someone through the why behind the need for discussing it. And I'll show you some of those examples as well. So what that allows you to do is create these targeted sales conversations, as opposed to, hey, what I do is I collect all this data and then I spit out a bunch of like charts and things like that. You can start with something a little bit more basic that speaks to the individual that's in front of you, and create a little bit more tailored conversation for that, right? The other thing that I really like to hone in on is check-ins. A lot of times, once you get beyond that initial plan, I hear from a lot of people at shows why they love us is because it gives us something and a reason to have a touch, right? Nowadays you use this more in social media and things like that, but some way that you can reach back out to the individual 6 months, a year after that plan and say, hey, have you thought about maybe having that next component of the discussion, right? And there's a lot of different ways that we can check in with the client, re-engage the client using the content and the materials in the tool here. So I'd like to start with kind of just giving some high level understanding that it's not just onboarding and fact finding. That's what we do as well. And we do kind of streamline that process for you. But it's all these other peripheral things that make Advisys valuable, right? And so I don't like to think of us as really as so much of a planning tool, although everyone wants to fit us into that box. Oops. But we do want to be considered a communication tool because at the heart of what you guys do is communicate with these individuals. You're talking to them face to face. You're trying to get to know them. You're trying to understand their fears, their hopes, their desires, and build a plan around that because that's where the trust is found, right? And that's where decisions are made is around kind of some of these different areas that you can't just go right into the data with, right? So that's a little bit about what you can do that's a little outside of what a plan, but let's talk about why it works. And I've touched on this a little bit already. It's because education is the key to trust, right? People that understand the choices that they're making are a lot more likely to take your advice. They're a lot less likely to have reservations about the recommendations that you're making. And a lot of what we do is focused around getting them to have that aha or that light bulb moment, right? Users don't choose us because it's trendy. They choose it because it works in real meetings with real people. This is something I hear from our product developer all the time and from people in the field as well, is that we keep renewing because at the end of the day, even if it's once or twice a year that I pull a report of it, Advisys, it helps them feel better about what it is that they're doing, right? And then the second thing is that we're efficient. The planning light component that I mentioned that Kitsus files us under, I don't take it as a dig. I like that you can create a plan in 10 or 15 minutes, especially if you're, a busy advisor who's taking a lot of meetings. Doing that same plan prep, 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours of plan prep for every meeting is kind of cumbersome. So being able to sometimes spend 5 minutes or 10 minutes doing it, that frees up a lot of other time. And I know just from my own job that when you wear a lot of different hats, and I know advisors and insurance professionals do, juggling that time is a big part of your day. Being efficient is an important part. So we want you to get in, we want you to get out and get what you need without a lot of fuss, right? So we support that as well. And I'll talk about that at the end with support and training as well. So if you're an existing Advisys user at this session and you're not sure, you're getting the value out of it, spend some time with one of our client services reps. They can help you understand, we'll talk to you a little bit about the type of client that you're working with, or maybe, what it is that you think this could fit, and help you kind of start to build a better understanding of how to use it efficiently for your own business, because not everyone uses it the same. Some people only like the calculators. Some people only use the educational reports. It really depends on what your process is now, but do recommend that you spend some time. It's all included in the annual subscription cost. So if you're a subscriber now, just reach out. Let us know what it is that you think you're struggling with, and we'll try to fill in the gaps for you. And then the last thing is that being professional is probably the most important part. I don't care if you're buying a car or you're buying, trying to put your money into a Roth or anything like that. You want to meet someone who looks like they know what they're doing. So everything that we do is not only compliant, but can be tailored to the individual, because the way that you present matters just as much as the plan, like I say here. So, again, not anything you probably haven't heard before, but I like to hone in on the education and the efficiency part, because a lot of people feel like that's where they're missing out with some of the tool sets or tech stack that they already have. There isn't a client education tool out there. A lot of times you have to source that stuff from the internet. It can be unreliable or maybe formatted differently than the rest of the material presenting, and that doesn't make you look as professional when everything's kind of a la carte and doesn't look cohesive. So, everything in the tool here is meant to build a presentation, whatever that means, in the most professional way possible. Okay? So let's talk a little bit more about, let's see, actually, let's get into the actual walkthrough. I'm going to tend to speak a little bit quick, so I'm going to try to slow my pace here. Hopefully I'm not going too quickly for anyone. That's my own homework every time, and it's been a while since I've done one of these, is I need to slow it down, give myself a chance to breathe. I like what we do here, so it's easy for me to get excited about it, and I want to make sure that everyone's getting the information and can absorb it as much as quickly as I can say it, I guess. So at this point, I'm going to kind of hop into the tool itself. And right before I do that, I want to say, like, what I've put together today is a very small segment of what it is that the tool offers. Obviously, as a education resource and things like that, we cover every different topic. So we have over 600 different educational reports in the tool, 16 different needs analysis. Like I mentioned, we have 70 different financial calculators. I'm not going to cover all of that today. What I want to hone in on is the different parts of the tool that I feel like help control the conversation, that help set the pace for your meeting, and that really fit the description of our event today. So keep that in mind as we're going through. If you have questions, or if you want to know about a specific topic that we cover at the end, hopefully, since I am going a little quick, I should have time for questions. But if not, feel free to give us a call. Go to our website. You'll see our 800 number at the end of the slide as well. You can give us a call and maybe do a little personalized demo and see if there's some information in here for specific use cases that you might see this being used for. So I'll take that as a caveat to what I'm about to show you now. Okay, so minimize this, and we're right into the tool. So in Advisys, really what I want to focus on is two different parts. This left side here is all the reports that I've selected for today. Some of them are calculators, some of them are educational, some of them are analysis, but each one is designed to help present a different part of the conversation that you're going to be having with the individual, right? And the first part of that is kind of just setting the stage, right? So let's talk about this. For our purposes today, let's say that we have a client who's wants to talk about retirement, but is a little bit unsure about where to start, knows that there's some decisions that they need to make. They're doing things already, but they're not sure if it's right or not. How do we get that person to believe that what I'm going to recommend as an advisor is the right thing, right? So the first thing that we always start with, no matter what the topic is that Advisys has a lot of these things called what I like to call approach reports. And an approach report is not talking about a specific product. It's not selling anything, but it's talking about the peripheral information related to that topic. And in the case of retirement, it's challenges, expectations, things that you think that maybe are going to present a roadblock or a speed bump for you. So we like to bring this up initially because it's discovery without asking for discovery. And you guys may already have a way that you do this, but the way that Advisys does this is we say, hey, here's what traditionally Americans have thought about retirement. And here's where we think things are changing or where the challenges are. So it puts this kind of buffer, if you will, between you, what you think and your opinion, and them and what they think and what they know, and kind of it puts you on an even level, right? So when we talk about retirement, we're talking about expectations. We're talking about whether or not what retirement looks like to you is the same as what I think it should look like. Because like the report says, it's not always economic. It's not always just retirement peace of mind that we're looking for. But that peace of mind, or actually I shouldn't say it is peace of mind that we're looking for, but that peace of mind looks a little different to people. So this initial report about retirement planning talks about that it's not always a desire of money. Sometimes it's being able to shift to something more fulfilling. I have plenty of people that I know in my personal life, their parents got into a completely different line of work, but they call themselves retired. They started a small business. Started woodworking or doing something that they liked, started a YouTube channel. There's a lot of different ways to go about it. So understanding what retirement might look like to them is the first indicator of some of the other conversations you might want to have with them, right? Someone like that YouTube person who's maybe bringing in some revenue might want to understand how that's going to impact their Social Security. So it's kind of like a sneak in, if you will, but we want them to start thinking and asking themselves these questions because that's going to inform us when we go to do the analysis or when we go to have that next conversation with them about some of the other topics that we might want to bring up. Challenges are another thing. Health problems are not going away for people. There's a lot in the news right now, especially about people on Medicare and Medicaid. And so understanding how they feel about their health, how they plan to pay for challenges that might occur during that, all of that absolutely impacts what their plan is going to look like. And that doesn't just go for themselves. It could be for family members as well. You have children with special needs or aging parents. We want to be able to understand the scope of your life in its entirety. So these approach pieces are really intended to do that. And then a lot of them will have these kinds of like self questions in them that help the individual or the couple that you're meeting with really make sure that they feel like the things that are concerning to them are being addressed, right? So you don't necessarily have to say, hey, what are the things that are important to you? You can say, hey, these are some questions that you might want to consider. Do you feel content and comfortable about how retirement's going to look like? Do you have worries that we're not really thinking about right now? And then at the end of that, you're going to have this probably laundry list of things that are going to go, great, now I feel like I understand you a lot better, right? So we talk a little bit about what satisfaction looks like, how you can improve that satisfaction through some of these questions. And, that is a great starting place. So you might want to take it from this. You might want to just even go higher level and say, hey, guess what? You might outlive your money. We want to make sure that people understand that there is a need for retirement planning. So talking about longevity, and maybe you use some, life tables or something already to do this, but there's a lot of different ways to talk about the need for that point that you retire, which is really, when you retire your income and you hire your assets. I think I've heard that plenty of times before as the real definition of retirement. Once you're really relying on what you have in the market or in the bank, that's when you're retired. You might even still have some passive income, but you're really relying on what that spend down looks like to get you there. So we want people to understand what life expectancy looks like. And so this is just kind of another way that you can set the stage. So controlling the conversation at the beginning or the start of the relationship really can rely on some of these educational reports, either whether it's for retirement or whether it's, you approaching it from whatever the main conversation is that they're wanting to start with. Advisys has a report that kind of mirrors what I've shown you in the retirement area for that particular area. If it's college planning, survivorship planning, even small business owners, I love our small business planning section. Can be a really great way to just kind of get them thinking about the sense of urgency that needs to happen, right? And really to prevent them from getting overwhelmed. Nothing that I've shown them here should make them feel overwhelmed yet. It should really just go, okay, actually there is more to this than meets the eye. And therefore there's a need for someone that is a professional to be able to help me out, right? It looks like I do have a Q&A here. Tim, I'm going to pause real quick to address Tim's. I did say this at the beginning, but yes, we are recording this session. If you have to hop off for any reason, absolutely. Everyone who attended will get a link to download or to review the session tomorrow, probably about 11 a.m. Pacific time, right after the 24 hours after the end of the session. So if you do have to hop off, again, just as a reminder, this is being recorded. All right. So with that addressed, let's go into the second part. Let's talk about, the need for reinforcing things that are not a full plan, but where you want to be able to help them understand a concept or a particular, you know, uh, I guess financial concept is the best word for it. One of the examples that I like to give that uh, I didn't know before I started working here, again, coming from the background of not having a lot of experience in my family with dealing with money or investing or anything like that. The rule of 72. So a lot of the calculators that you'll find in Advisys kind of fit this description. They're one page, they have very brief inputs, and they're designed to explain a certain point, like this one, about how long it'll take your money to double. So if you come in to a meeting with someone who says, I'm not sure that I need a full plan, I think I'm doing great job saving, and they're able to tell you, I got X in the bank. There's a lot of different ways that you can look at helping them understand that maybe there is more of a conversation to have, right? And I wanted to pull one of the other ones up here as well, which is my rate of withdrawal in retirement. So two different ways to look at it is I have $1 million in the bank and I want to know if $1 million is long enough to last me, but I don't want to do a full plan to find that out. We can use a very basic calculator to say, okay, there's some assumptions that you have to consider. Again, always educating someone about the variables that go into them being successful or not, right? So how much you have in the bank, absolutely important. The rate of return that that's earning, absolutely important. The number of years that you're going to need that money, even more important. And then the one that gets people sneakily is this inflation rate. When we change the inflation rate on something like the spend down, right? So the calculator, the output is very basic. It tells you, hey, if you want to stay even with withdrawals, to stay even with inflation over time, given what we know at the base level about what your money is going to do, your money can last you 25 years, right? But if I were to just change this from 4 to 5%, let's say, that number, oops, actually didn't change in this case. $1 million still lasts them 25 years. Well, that seems like it might not be right. Let me see here. Oh, I see what's happening. I'm looking at the calculator wrong. You can still make it last 25 years. This is the calculator that makes it last as long as you're going to need for it. But what it's showing you is your withdrawal amount changes over time. Apologies. I'm just getting there. We have another calculator that does the flip of this, where it'll tell you, how long it'll last if you are changing that rate of inflation. So this conversation is more about lifestyle than it is about, you running out of money, because chances are you're not just going to spend till you have zero. You're going to go, oh no, we're running out of money, and we're going to start to adjust our lifestyle accordingly. The real conversation about this is this $35,000 is not in today's dollars. So the other main concept that a lot of these calculators kind of allow you to introduce is the time value of money. What is $35,000 going to be worth when you go to retire? If I'm in my 40s now, and that's 25 years from now, is that going to be enough? If I think if I'm going to have $1 million when I retire, is 35,000 adjusted for inflation going to be enough? And we have some other calculators that can help you explain what that is in today's dollars. Again, but the idea is you don't need a full plan to help answer a question about, is this enough? Sometimes the confidence that people have over what they're doing already is part of the problem. They think they know better, or that they've thought about all the variables. And sometimes a simple calculator like this can do a really good job of helping you introduce that there's a lot more, that there's a reason that there's been financial planners for as long as there have, because it's not always as simple as this. There's tax implications, there's all these other things that they really need to consider. So within the Advisys, again, I said there's about 70 of these. Just in the retirement planning section alone, let me blow this up a little bit so you can kind of see some of them. We have about 30 or 40 different ones that do everything from comparing an IRA, or talking about Monte Carlo simulator we have in here, a Roth IRA conversion. Those are some of the kind of popular ones. The other one that I selected here is Social Security. A very, very common, probably universal topic, if you will, for everyone who's not exempt from it, maybe government employees, teachers, certain things like that, that helps them understand some of the basic rules around it. The number one being that if you collect early, you get less, and if you can wait, you get more, right? But we want to understand the difference. Everyone wants access to that money right away. We want to be able to explain to them that there's benefit in planning to wait, right? To positioning our assets in such a way where we don't need to take it at 62 and we can wait to 70, because the amount of total benefit or annual benefit that you receive can be pretty starkly different, right? And I don't know, most people would probably say yes to this. It's kind of a gotcha question, but like, would you rather have $1.6 million in total benefit from the government or $1.2 million? And most people are going to say, well, I'd rather have that. But will it be feasible to wait till 70? That's going to depend on all these other things that we haven't even gotten to yet, right? So I always like to point out that calculators are kind of like your mini analysis. They're mini plans or mini peeks into what the plan might look like that can help you set the stage for the next part of the conversation, right? So at the start of the relationship, it doesn't always have to be, give me 30 pages of data. It can be, hey, what are you concerned about? What is your main goal here? And then we can start with some basic things to help you understand why there's going to be a lot more to this, right? All right. So hopefully that makes sense. The calculators I think are probably some of our most popular things that you don't see in a lot of other financial planning tools, or that really maybe are part of the whole shebang. But with Advisys, you can pick and choose. I can use just this and an educational report and make that my presentation for that 10-15 minute session that they have. If someone has 2 hours to sit down with you, I don't know a lot of people that have that kind of time nowadays to go through a full plan, soup to nuts. But if you don't have that and you're met with a time constraint from the client side, this is another really great way to kind of control that time and make sure that what you covered is the right appropriate thing for the time that you have for the individual, right? So the next part of it is kind of the discovery stuff. Now, obviously, most of you have ever used a financial planning tool or any sort of analysis tool at all, know what a client fact finder looks like. We have that inside of Advisys. We actually give you the ability to kind of build your own. So when you input a client and you're ready to go to that data component, inputting in a client in Advisys really is deciding what topics you want to cover. Because again, we don't want to talk to someone about charitable planning or long-term care if it's not relevant to them. So why would I gather information or ask them for that information? Yeah, maybe I'll be able to use it in the future at some point, but it can be a hindrance to the client to ask for all of that. So what we do is we say, hey, okay, pick and choose, go to the input client, pick and choose what you want. I picked the core things. We want to talk about your personal finance and your debt. We want to talk about your short-term goals, things like, an emergency fund or a vacation or a wedding that you're planning to pay for. We want to be able to talk about what it is that's important to the individual. So, I know a lot of companies out there that we work with kind of couple what we do with like a priority sheet, a list, the most important top to bottom things that you think you'd want to discuss, and then we'll go down the list. We kind of take that approach. But when you check each of these boxes, what you get is an input form that is only that information. So I'm going to scroll through this. I've already taken the liberty of inputting the information, but you can kind of see when it comes to personal finance, we're talking about monthly expenses, etc. We're keeping everything very high level because, again, planning light, remember that. We're not aggregating. We want them to understand if there's action that needs to be taken and maybe if there's a need to go deeper. But we don't want to overwhelm them. So we'll pick and choose this. This can be printed as its own page from the thing, or you can do it in front of them like this. It does take up the full screen, so you can kind of just run through it with them and help them understand, what the purpose of each of this information is. So I'm going to close out of this. I just wanted to kind of show you a little bit of how you gather information in here. And so if you were to gather that information, each one of the analysis sections that we have has its own set of reports. So when I gather information for retirement savings, I can pick and choose from up to 9 different looks at of that data to decide what it is that's going to tell the story. So from the fact finding perspective, we want to keep it simple. We want you to capture the right information without overwhelming it, and we want you to understand that you drive the input and not the client necessarily. Right? We're not just going to ask them for every bit of financial information if we don't need it. Right? When it comes to actually quantifying the need for that, there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of do, like, split that data out. And I always like to say, like, in marketing, we talk about personas a lot. And in sales, you deal with this a lot too. The person who is an engineer is a very different person to present to than the person who is a creative, like kind of like I am. I am not a true analytical person. I have to do some of that for my job, but it's not where my strength lies. I'm a visual learner. So for my visual learners, we always want to be able to provide something that like fits that bill. So when it comes to output, in each one of the topics will have a very similar feel to this. We're going to give them something that's high level that they can understand and see visually where they're at, right? And when it comes to our retirement example here, it's things like, hey, here's what you've indicated your goals are. And we're going to show that to you as a form of, as a flat dollar amount, as a percentage of your current income, right? So if people say something like, hey, you know what, I just want to kind of live the same kind of lifestyle I have now, great. We can work with that. We can understand what it is that you're making now income wise, and we can carry that forward, adjust for inflation, et cetera, et cetera. But we want you to understand that, income needs may change over time. So what Advisys does as far as input, it allows you to say, okay, in retirement, there's the beginning of retirement, and some people call this the retirement smile, right? Then there's a number of years into retirement, and you pick and choose when that is. And then as you get older, those needs change, right? And whether that goes down or down and then up with healthcare needs, that's really, again, part of your discovery process. We want to make sure that we have extra money when we get older, then we can adjust the analysis to show for that, right? But the output, we want it to keep it high level. We want to show them where's the money coming from, what is the assets that you're going to have available at retirement, and then how does that look potentially, because again, everything that we do, no matter how complex you get, is going to have this little tiny line at the bottom that says, hey, this is hypothetical. The markets could, go crazy and be really volatile, and it might not look like this. That's the whole purpose of check-ins and refreshes and kind of looking at this repeatedly over time, is that things change, and we cannot guarantee that this is exactly what it's going to be. But when we look at it today, here's what you can expect. You can expect that actually you have a bit of a shortfall. And what our goal is, as the advisor, is to not make them freak out about that shortfall. People don't like to see the red, but we want to provide them an avenue to understand that shortfall and some of the things that they can do to, get the red out, so to speak. So again, for my visual learners, this is great. But for those people who are the analytical person, they might want to understand that money a little bit differently. And I didn't include this in the checkboxes today, but I will show it to you. And I'll even zoom in a little bit more so you can kind of see. This is more of a traditional spreadsheet view of that exact same graph that we just saw. The total amount of shortfalls, the additional capital that's required, and then showing them at each age, client one and clients two age, how that asset balance dwindles and then when that shortfall starts. So a really impactful way to kind of explain that to people, even that are visual, is that, hey, would you want to have to start to worry about money at 81 years old? Probably not. So we want to be able to discuss some of the things that we can do to help you avoid having to be a Walmart greeter or whatever it is that someone can do at 81. I've seen, I like video games, and this is anecdotal, but I like video games. I grew up in that generation, and there's a guy named Grandpa Gaming. He is in his 80s. He's a World War II or a Korean War vet who plays Call of Duty, and he streams it, and he says he makes more money doing that than he ever did in his career. So you never know, but that's not for everyone, is my point. And you don't want to necessarily worry about running out of money at 80. So we'll be able to show them, that in a couple different ways. So the analytical person gets one view, the visual person gets the other view, or maybe you show them both and you just and you kind of gauge what their response is to either, right? But the goal is, through this discovery, we want to be able to quantify, what it is that they can do to help avoid running out of money at 81. And so another report that we have, and again, I'm not going through each one of these. I want to say again, the idea here is, how do you control a conversation? Well, you force them to focus in on the things that matter most, right? And when it comes to getting the red out of a report or being able to close that gap in savings, there's really only 4 things that you can do. And that's save more, earn more, spend less, retire later. So we break down, and this is all kind of customized for the individual based on their data. And we kind of break that down for them. So if you're gonna save more, you would need to go from saving $650 a month to, quite a bit more than that. You need to increase it by 1,800, where you're earning 5%. Now I can control what this rate of return is. So this is a really good way for people who are like maybe suggesting that what they're doing right now is a little too conservative, to be able to come in and say, okay, well, if we have a solution rate of return that's 9% versus your 5% you're getting now, what does that change? How does that impact what it is that happens to me? So I can come in here and quickly make a change to the input, the solution rate, and now I can see that that 650 only needs to be increased by 1,300. Still pretty unreasonable to triple what you're saving necessarily, but you know, showing again the impact of a rate of return, the impact that some of these variables have in a very simplistic way. That's kind of the point of how you control that conversation. Moreover, as you can kind of see, it says what you would need to do for each one of these things, but the bottom of the report says really the important part is that, hey, we're being realistic here and understanding that not all of these are going to be possible to implement. I can't just find 1,300 extra dollars necessarily. Maybe in looking at your budget, we did understand that you are wasting a lot of money at Starbucks and going out to eat. Maybe you need to, talk about habits a little bit more, but realistically you probably are going to consider taking some steps in each one of these areas to make those changes, right? So being able to kind of have that conversation and say, guess what, money doesn't grow on trees unless you have a rich uncle, or you're a Nigerian prince reaches out all of a sudden. You're not really going to just magically have that money. So what do we need to do to get there? Do we need to be a little bit more aggressive on our timeline as far as saving? Do we need to talk about what retirement looks like to us and have a realistic understanding of what our, actual retirement can look like? Or do we need to talk about maybe pushing that retirement date out a little bit, right? The part that's important is that you consider the steps in each of these areas. Investments, with a higher rate of return have increased risk. So we always want to kind of hedge our bets and just say, you know what, we can do something and let's talk about each one of these. So I always like to highlight those two reports in particular because I think they do a really good job of keeping it grounded and keeping the conversation to something that someone can understand. And I won't go into the rest of the retirement reports in detail, but we have things like showing the time value of money and how that need has grown over time. There's a detail report. There is a Social Security optimizing component for this that we can talk about how to make sure that you're getting the most out of Social Security. A lot of different ways you can pick and choose how you want to control the conversation. It's up to you to come in here and go, okay, this report, and that's really all I need for this. Let's not include all 10 just so that we look like we're, robust, right? So I'm going to go back to my side here. And then there's other ways that you can do that. And I kind of showed you the Social Security break even. We have one specifically for those people who may be where, you want to include life insurance as part of the conversation, but you're not your life license, but you're not necessarily a life agent only. Some ways just help them understand the need in these different areas, whether it's through one report or a calculator. We like to be able to hone in on that. The other way that we can kind of quantify needs is one of our newer reports that we've included here, and that's our financial fitness. So what we do is we essentially have taken like kind of a heuristic model and said, okay, well, if you give us data for these different areas, and I've again pre-selected the ones that we're talking about today, what we can say is, hey, are you on track based on what you say your goals are? Right. And so in this particular instance here, they're not too far off of their retirement score, but they're only at a 7 out of 10, right? So 73% of your retirement expenses can be satisfied. So some people like to even start here and go, hey, give me again, process is up to you. What we want to be able to do is fit the process that you think works best for you. So if it's data gathering up front, awesome. This is maybe a really good place for you to start and say, there's some areas of need that maybe we want to hone in on. And like I showed a moment ago, life insurance might be the number one, because if something does happen to you, or you are working with someone who's like in a higher risk job along shoreman, firefighter, policeman, maybe something where this is even more important to the family than what they realize, right? Because of the particular area of profession that they're in. So this is a kind of a newer report for us where we take a look at your overall financial fitness as kind of like a high level look. So really like to give a couple different ways that we can kind of show what it is that that will make it stick for them, right? Now, when you're presenting the solution, like I said, it's up to you to pick and choose which of these reports go in here. You can start with, if it's, hey, I start at the beginning, let's start with just the cash flow and net worth. Let's identify that unaccounted for savings before we even get into any of this. I've included all of it because I'm kind of going through it all in one go today, but you can pick and choose. You get to control what order these reports appear in. So if I wanted that cash flow at the top, I just go to my list and presentation and drag the cash flow and the net worth to the top. I kind of wish this dragged with it a little bit better, but there you go. You can kind of pick and choose. And this is really just the order of what the PDF that you're building is going to be in, right? So from a presenting solution standpoint, you decide how much or little. If I want to get rid of that, the rule of 72 calculator, I just hit the little X, it goes away. Maybe I don't need these couple calculators, or I've talked about them and I don't necessarily want to print out them. We can kind of decide what it is that we're presenting so that we can keep it focused and build that buy-in without, again, when I even do these and there's 40, 50 reports, by the time I generate the PDF, it's 80 pages long. And we're right back to an e-money report, right? Where we're 80 pages. But we don't always want that. Maybe there's someone who does want to do that, but you control the narrative, you control the conversation by deciding how much or little of the reports that you need, right? I think that's part of one of the things that makes Advisys unique is that you have a lot more control over the information and the way that the information is presented. Then you can also include things like, I don't think I actually did them in here today, but we have other parts of the tool in here that are like worksheets or client interaction forms, things like an agenda. If you want to be professional, having an introductory sentence that says, today, all we're going to talk about is identifying what's important to you. And here's how I do that. 1, 2, 3, 4. We give you a lot of other supplementary components to what makes a good presentation that, you might otherwise have to kind of build on your own. That includes things like a goal. You saw it a moment ago, I had the goals up. It might be a follow-up touch point, because I did say that, we have a lot of different ways that you kind of reach out afterwards. And we want people to understand that this is an ongoing process. So beyond the actual education component, beyond the calculators and the analysis, you'll find other tools in here that are meant to, give you a reason to follow up, to find other solutions that maybe are of value to them, or maybe even ask for a referral. There's a referral sheet in here as well. But a lot of different ways that you can build what a solution looks like to this individual. Unfortunately, we can't, AI scan the person that you're sitting across from yet, probably, and decide what is going to be best for them. That really takes that intuition and that kind of gut feeling of getting to know them that is going to inform what it is that you build out of Advisys, right? So when we say control the conversation, it's all these different parts of what goes into building a relationship with an individual. And that part is up to you. So, as we kind of run through these last couple parts, I just want to remind those of you that do subscribe that, all of this is in here. We're happy to train you on it. We're happy to help you build templates, which is another thing that we do in here, is you can do preset number of reports that say, hey, you know what? Every time someone comes into my office and I'm going to talk about, have that first appointment with them, I want to have these 8 reports ready to go. An agenda, the checklist, the goals, those kind of key things, talk about the intro to retirement. And I can just click one box to get 8 reports all at once. So there's a lot of different ways, again, to be efficient in the tool. For those of you who are subscribers already, take advantage of the templates. If you don't know how to build the templates or you're not sure that this was in here, give us a call. We'll show you how to do it. We'll even help you build the ones that you think are useful to you. You can see I've done this. I've probably done 100 webinars. It's been a while since I've done one, but I have one on every topic. So if there's one in here that you think like, I don't want to take the time to build it and you just want one of ours, we have pre-built ones. These are mine, but we do have preset templates as well that have like the most popular reports or the most used reports. We swap those up every now and then based on how we add and take away reports that aren't useful anymore. So at the end of it, I always want to remind this is designed to support you, not to replace your voice. We explain things in the plainest way possible, but we want you guys to feel like the expert when you're using this stuff, right? So it's not used to replace your voice or your style. It's really intended to support the way that people think about their money, which unfortunately for you guys, it's very fearful. It's very afraid and unsure that you probably get a lot of that emotion more than confidence and readiness, right? So I like to always remind people that, this is used in a lot of different ways, but it should always be your voice, your style, and that gets the job done, or that closes it, right? So I'm going to switch back over at this point, since we're just about 10 minutes out, and say, we got a few questions up here. Let's see if I can address those before I get away from the program itself. So Javier, you asked a really good question, and I kind of teed this up at the beginning. Javier asked about estate planning presentation for clients that are worth more than 12 million, just to educate on the death taxes. There was I'll call it a creative decision made because we are in really trying to fit the needs of those people who have lower complexity situations. Someone who's got more than $12 million probably is a little more complex than we are intended to handle. But I understand your point about educating on death taxes. So, if it's not available in an education report or you think there's something that we could do to help explain that in a calculator, reach out to us in the through support. Our product development VP of product development, Ron Smith, he's been in this business probably longer than I've been alive. I don't want to call him that. He's not. That's. He would hate to hear me say that. He's not that old, but he's been around a long time, and so he could talk to you about maybe the way to do it if you haven't already. Anything that doesn't fit our like $10 million cap that we have in the tool, that you feel like we're missing, or that still needs to be explained simply, I just encourage you to reach out to us. The estate analysis is where you want to get into. Okay, all three questions are from Javier, and I appreciate your engagement, Javier. We are gonna probably hold that and say, hey, schedule one-on-one time. You can spend 30 minutes to an hour with our head of client services if you want someone really experienced, Jason, that will help walk through the template. I want to say, as far as what's in my template, I'll kind of show you. My business continuation template has, education on a buy-sell agreement or how to set up a buy-sell. It maybe goes into more of the valuation side. Oh, these are just actually my presets, excuse me, not mine. I'm like, I should have more in there. Small business essentials, that's mine. So, commonly asked continuation questions. There's a lot in here. So, anything on taxes. Okay, so yes and no. We have information because state taxes in particular are such a cumbersome thing, and for us to maintain and update information on all 50 states, we don't have anything at the state level. You will find information in here on like how common investments are taxed or the way that businesses are treated tax wise. So yes and no. We have things like and I use this every year. We have a federal income tax calculator that says, hey, you want to have a loose idea of what it is that you might have to owe this year. Here, let me just go to that real quick. Want to know what you want to? I use this to make sure that I'm net zero on my taxes every year, because I don't want the government holding on to my money and then giving it back to me at the end of the year. So, each year we update this. It's very basic, but again, so to answer your question, Teresa, do we have anything on taxes? The answer is yes, but will we have what it is that you're looking for? Again, I would just encourage you to reach out, ask us, spend 15, 20 minutes with us and go through the content that we do have. You'll see in here when I just type in federal, some of that comes up: taxation on common investments, taxation on split dollar arrangement, income in respect of a decedent. There's a lot in here, but it may not be exactly what you're looking for. And as far as taxes, when it comes to the analysis goes, really the only area that we deal with that is when it comes to retirement distribution, because again, kind of from a philosophical standpoint, that's where it matters, is where I can move my money around every which way from Sunday until I go to retire. And then when I go to withdraw it, that's when it kind of matters what buckets it's in, according to Ron Smith, right? So, we do address taxes, but it is a little bit more of a high level. Remember, planning light. We want to be able to keep it understandable for those people that maybe don't work with a CPA, aren't going to know those kind of ins and outs, if you will, but still to give you something useful when it comes to having questions about that kind of those kind of topics, right? So, Javier, I'm really sorry. I would love to go more into that, into the templates and things themselves, but I'll even do you one better, Javier. I have done a separate webinar entirely on just small business. I will send that to you. I think I obviously have your email address if you signed up for that. I will be happy to send that to you so you can kind of like see how I've presented on that before. But do absolutely encourage you guys to call in if you are a subscriber and there's a specific topic that you want covered, or that you really want to figure out how we can help you present or control this conversation in that way. Absolutely encourage you guys to give us a ring or set up some time to work with one of our support people. Right. So with that being said, let's kind of wrap this. If there are any other questions at this point, feel free to put it into the Q&A, put it into the chat. I'm happy to address that. But otherwise, let's talk a little bit about the stuff for people that aren't already subscribers. It's usually about 50-50 on these events. So we really have two flavors, if you will, of the product. For those people who don't really feel like the analysis component would be useful to them, they already are well versed in their e-monies, their money guides, their right capitals, what have you. We offer an education only version that includes the calculators. So anything that's that one page simplified concept look, the 70 or so of those that we have as an education only version. You get all the content, all the supporting material like the agenda, the recommendations page, the referral, the checklist. You have all of that, but you also get the training and stuff like that included for $5.99 a year. Now today I'm going to offer $100 off each of these. Actually, excuse me, the $7.98 is the discounted price because actually that should be $9.98. That's my bad. I forgot to switch that. It's $9.98. We included used to have a standalone module. Is really not worth explaining to you guys. So the price you will pay right now is $4.99 on the education for today and $7.98 for the advanced today. Otherwise, it's $5.99 for the education and $9.98 for the advanced if you want to sign up after today. So encourage you guys to understand the difference is one includes the analysis and one doesn't. That's really it. Everything else is included as far as the program is concerned. We also give anyone who's a new subscriber 60 days to work with us, to put together some material. Let us help you prepare for an actual client meeting. And if you don't like it, we'll give you that whatever the cost is back, within that 60 days. If you don't want to go that route, and you are willing to sit with us and actually do a demo, we'll give you 14 days access for free. You can still use it. There's no watermark or anything like that. But it's kind of one or the other. If you want to take a chance on it and use it for 2 months, I know a lot of people like that option better because let's be honest, a lot of people buy something and then you don't even get to it for a couple weeks. So, know that you have that ability to kind of get through on it. And another question from Barbara here. If you want to upgrade, yeah, absolutely. We'll prorate your amount. So we'll do a little quick math and say, okay, you renewed, let's say 6 months ago. So the remaining 6 months plus the upgrade difference would be what you would pay, right? And then we would reset your renewal date from that date as your new date. So we'll always work with you. And then I'll also put a caveat is if you were invited today, there's a good chance, I'm speaking in retail off the street pricing. We work with 20 plus different broker dealers and insurance companies that have either their own version of this or their own affiliate pricing. This is the highest price that you'll pay. We have people that get it for as low as $199, which is a little too low in my opinion for everything you get out of there. But if you're not sure if we have a relationship with the company that you work with, give us a call. We'll talk you through the differences between the retail version and your version. Sometimes compliance, because we give them a layer in between, will say, we don't like the way that report is worded, or and they'll get rid of it. But for the most part, I would say 95% of the content is in every version. And so give us a call to figure out what your relationship discount might be beyond this. But for today, I'm knocking $200 off the advanced version, so down to $798 from $998, and $100 off the education version, down to $499 from $599. And if you are upgrading or anything like that, like Barbara said, just give us a call and we'll talk you through kind of what the price difference would be. If you think there's more to what you can get out of it than what you're already getting, we'd love to hear from you as well. So that's kind of it on pricing. I want to just thank everyone since we're at the last couple minutes and leave some of our information up here. And I'm going to highlight one part on this. If I could ask anything of you as I plead, is give us a follow on LinkedIn. I do a lot of work on there, again, marketing person, to highlight reports that we offer, to talk about specific topics similar to what we do in these webinars, but on a more condensed level. Hey, here's one report, how you use it, where it's useful, etc. So shoot us a follow on LinkedIn. I would absolutely be eternally grateful if you guys were willing to do that. Even if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, more than happy to give a follow back as well. I try to always post things that are relevant to the advisor space as a marketer. But absolutely, would love if you guys did that. Otherwise, if you have more questions, you can see the rest of our contact information up on the screen. Feel free to reach out. Let us know what we could do better, what we need to add. Javier, I'm looking at you, man. If you want to, give us some insight as to what it is you think might be helpful for explaining death taxes, We do a session twice a year where we go, okay, where are all the ideas coming from? We go to shows, we talk to our boots on the ground, if you will, as you guys all are for us, and we find out what we can add, how we can tweak things. We're constantly adding calculators and different things to help it out. So if you do have feedback, by all means, let us know. We have thick skin. If you think it's awful, we'll hear that too. So I'll leave you with that and say, reach out to us during regular business hours. We don't have any sort of, um, you know, what do you call it? Out external call center. So you'll only reach us here in California from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. Teresa, I see your comment on wanting that presentation, so I'll capture both of those. As far as the anonymous question about there being a replay, not a replay, but again, if you did attend, you absolutely will get a recording. So yeah, I guess that's a replay. You'll get a recording sent to your inbox tomorrow, right around this time. So look for that. It'll come from Zoom, I believe, sends the email follow-up automatically, and then I provide the recording link in there for you. So otherwise, again, my name's Paul Reed. Thank you guys very, very much for being here and spending an hour with me. I know, again, busy days, and so it is appreciated, and hopefully you took something positive away from it. So we'll do one of these again soon. But otherwise, have a great rest of your guys' day, and thank you again. Take care.